Hello and welcome to the Crit to Block podcast. We are your hosts, Eric Maylott
and Richard Lavery,
here to bring you in-depth conversation about competitive list building for Star Wars Legion. So today's conversation is going to be the second in a series of episodes focused on primary objectives and how to tailor your lists to specific ones.
Today we're going to be talking about close the pocket and intercept signals. These objectives give you very specific locations for both players where they want to be in order to score. This generally leaves you with a bit of a closer range engagement, benefiting range 2 and melee range units. Just a quick reminder before we get too far into this episode, we are going to assume a few things, including that you have at least read the objective and understand how scoring works, with the differences between contest and securing POIs. Let's go ahead and kick off our discussion, Eric, with Close the Pocket.
Yeah, so Close the Pocket, just as a general reminder, is the three POIs spread across the equator of the board. And starting round 2, you get 2 points for securing the middle one and 1 point for any side POI that you secure. So I guess, Richard, I will let you start us off with general strategies. What are you trying to do if you play Close the Pocket?
Sure. So with Close the Pocket, you've also get the kind of weird deployment zone as well, the old disarray, if you've been around in Legion long enough, where your deployment zone is kind of the corners. So one of the general strategies that seems to work very well for Close the Pocket is picking a quote-unquote safe side to kind of overload and push towards the middle from there. Basically, you're deploying all of your units into one half of the board and claiming one of those side objectives as yours, in the very loosest of terms. Obviously your opponent can still score it, but if they're going to, they either have to face you head on, in which case you're playing 1,000-point game of Legion on a 3-foot by 3-foot board, or your opponent's going to deploy in the opposite corner and you're going to meet in the middle instead of kind of clashing right away. And this kind of does two interesting things. So the first is whoever deploys first kind of gets to pick their side by deploying the first unit. And unless, like I said, that the opponent's looking to clash immediately, most often, especially as you get farther up in the competitive Legion scene, players are going to let that go and just take the opposite corner and kind of work from there, unless there's a massive terrain difference.
That sounds actually kind of fun, playing on a 3x3. Have you encountered just going like a head-to-head brawl? Like, I would imagine if you're playing like your Wookiee list that you played for so long and you just want to maul someone, you just line up across from them and you press W?
Oh, 100%. And I do that with a lot of my clone lists too. I play a lot of bully and kind of high Pierce and arc type style clone lists where I can get to you pretty quickly. And so this is also one of those objectives where you can move in off of the short edge of the board. And so if your opponent is lining up against you in that zone, you can get quite a bit of extra distance and throw some really nasty range 2 shots turn 1. I'm a huge fan of that. If you're going to give me the opportunity to fight you in a very closed space and you don't have, let's say you're a white save army, I'm fairly confident that game's over from turn 1. If you're a red save army, it could go 50-50 depending on whose red saves are better. So for the most part, especially if you're a newer player watching this and trying to take some advice away, don't fight your opponent head on unless you are overly confident in what your list can do.
Yes, you should
take the time, understand what's going on, move towards the center.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have built your list to go just charge someone immediately as fast as possible, then maybe, take them on head on. But otherwise, I think that makes sense to kind of pick a safe side, overload that, and then push to the middle from there.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you really need to keep in mind as you're building your strategy for Close the Pocket is how far can things move? That center scores 2 points. So if you hold the center and one of the sides, that's 3 victory points to 1 victory point, which is pretty significant. It typically, depending on how the board and the terrain is set up, if you deploy from your closest edge to the center, it's going to take you at best 3 speed 2 moves, on average probably 4 speed 2 moves to get to the center. Again, this is very terrain dependent. If there's a big building locked in the way, it's probably going to be 4. If it's all open terrain or scatter terrain that's not difficult, it might take you 3. But understanding those distances and, if you've kind of overloaded onto one of the side objectives, knowing how many moves it's going to take you to get to the center to contest is really important, because you're trying to maximize movement and firepower at the same time in order to get your opponent off the middle and claim it.
Right. So if you want to start contesting and trying to score the middle point by turn 2 when scoring starts, you probably need to dedicate at least one, probably more units to just double moving for the first 2 turns. Is that right?
I don't know. Again, it's gonna be a little bit
Terrain dependent. Yeah, but if
At
it
the
takes 4
very
moves,
3.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if it takes
Mm-hmm.
4 moves to get there, and you kind of can tell that when you get to the table, I know we all love shooting things, but that means you have to double move twice to get to the middle
Mm-hmm.
point if you want to contest turn 2, which I think is helpful to remember for people like me who, you might see a nice, tasty sleeper shot or something. You're like, I'll just pause here and shoot something. I guess sleepers
Mm-hmm.
are a bad example because scout, but
Well, fair enough. The other thing to keep in mind is, because that center point's worth so much, the majority of both players' armies will typically be fighting over it. So it's not uncommon to see 700 plus points of an army fighting over that center objective. It's going to get crowded. It's going to get deadly. And the amount of things in there so that you might even be able to block out your opponent from even getting within a half stick of the POI is possible. There's a B1 double stuffed B1 like game plan where you have so many units that are kind of swarming the objective that, if you have 4 double stuffed with heavy B1 squads, it's 14 models per squad times 4. So it's 56 models in the center swarming the objective. You're not landing around there,
right.
which is a real problem to deal with. If they can hold that for 2 turns, that's that's a 4-point advantage. So it's significant.
You heard it here first. Bring your flamethrowers, kids.
I think most lists can benefit from having one flamethrower, especially with how many people are experimenting with double stuff squads this day. But that's not the point of this cast.
Some podcasts out there are recommending trying double stuffs, and we may or may not be guilty of that. So
the tier rating.
It's all the rage right now. All right. So what else do we typically see as strategies for close the pocket? I would imagine if you overload on one side when you deploy and consider that kind of your quote unquote safe point, you want to make sure you maintain control over that point, right? So you should have units there who hopefully the terrain allows you to perhaps hide behind line of sight blockers. And those units should ideally have at least some higher courage or suppression mitigation, just so that your opponent can't just pop you a couple pot shots and panic you and make you not score, right?
Absolutely. That's a good location for support commanders to kind of hang out in, since they can still, with the range 2 of handing out their tokens, support the center of the board while remaining on that back objective and having kind of that better courage value. Be in cover always. There's no reason not to if you're just capping a back point. We talked about, I think in our first cast, the idea of having just kind of lean objective scorers, or ones with range 4 plus weaponry that can kind of sit on those points and still participate in the battle, but be where you need for objectives. These are your great pieces, your ATRTs with laser cannons, your strike teams, your clone commandos. A lot of good options there.
But at the same time, if it's something squishy like a sniper squad, it does have a lot of long range, but close the pocket in particular ends up getting in your face pretty quickly. So just be advised that those long range pokey things can also just disappear.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you really want to do if you're walking in with a plan is figure out how you're going to either score early or score late. you kind of have to pick a lane in this. You're either trying to score turns 2 and 3 and then hold on for 4, or let your opponent score 2 to get more damage, fight them for 3, you better steal it for 4, and then hold it for 5. One of those plays, the latter half turn 4-5 scoring, is a lot riskier because you're going to be down on VPs.
Mm-hmm.
However, in terms of models on the board, you should be a little bit ahead on attrition. So
So if it comes down to kill points, then if you tie, comes down to kill points to determine winner, you might be sitting in a little better position.
yes. Now, the flip side of this, I will say my preference always is to go up on VPs.
I am shocked.
Well, it does a few things. It forces pressure on your opponents, and because we play a game of strategy, pressure tends to result in mistakes. Mistakes can be capitalized on to win the game. And so putting that pressure on as quickly as possible by racking up the VP scores is going to really help you in kind of that mental game that's going on top of the physical game that we're playing. The other thing is, it is always a lot harder to remove an opponent from an entrenched position than it is to storm said entrenched position.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of classic military tactics. And while Star Wars Legion is not real life, some principles can carry over. This is one of those where if you are the one buried in heavy cover, where you're getting tokens and attack actions instead of having to do move attack actions, there's a lot of benefit there.
Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of touched on it earlier. This is one of those objectives where white save armies tend to have a harder time than red save armies because of that very reason. Once they get there, it's harder to remove them.
Yes. And let's talk about why. Let's talk about some of the units that really excel at this objective, right? Melee units and range 2 units, we already kind of touched on at the top of this episode. Your sleepers, your arcs, any of your lightsaber wielders, your black suns, anything that's got that pierce value for high damage, large dice pools, and also has a little bit of that survivability element. The dodge tokens and nimble on sleeper cells, the red saves on any of the other units I mentioned. Those are all really survivable. Anything that's good in melee, because you can't, shoot things that are in melee.
Right.
And so if you can bury in there and, again, bunker down and hold that fight, you're going to be a little bit better off.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those objectives, too, where if you pay the premium for Force Push, that Jedi or Force user can come in, start contesting, and also push someone else off, potentially. And that's a 2-unit swing for, contesting something. So I think, you mentioned Force users, but if you add Force Push to them, that could also be a pretty significant upgrade for this particular objective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at some lists that we think are good at this objective. Did you want to start, or did you want me to start today, Eric?
I can go ahead and start.
Let's see it then. For those of you watching on YouTube, those of you listening on other platforms, we'll read it off for you.
Yeah, so I have this concoction. I'm sticking with the Rebel theme for now. It starts with Sabine Wren. She's got up close, grappling line, a shield, and the Darksaber. Jyn Erso, my beloved, with inspiring presence, strike team leader. 2 units of fleet troopers with the shotgun and the extra man. I couldn't fit the fat squads into this particular list. 2 rebel troopers with Ion and an officer. 1 rebel trooper with a med droid, and then Clan Wren with transponder. Mandalorian Resistance with the duelist, transponder, and jetpack rockets. A sleeper cell, just naked. And 2 speeder trucks with spotter uplinks, one of them with Shriv as my commander. So a couple things that I want to point out for Close the Pocket in particular. We talked about command or courage bubbles. Inspiring presence on Jyn is going to help really boost anyone sitting on those back POIs and keep them from panicking. We've got 2 officers on the Rebel Troopers, so they're going to be inspiring things. Jyn can also play her 3-pip to give danger sense to surging red saves in Sabine and the 2 Mando squads. and make them really hard to dig out, like Richard was talking in. So if they can get to the middle, become
There you
entrenched,
go.
they're just not going anywhere, hopefully, unless your dice really hate you. And then we've got sleepers to do normal sleeper things, try and go delete things before they get deleted. And then I think you can do some interesting things with 2 buses here and try and, kind of like you talked about with the B1 hordes, you can kind of block people out and really dictate where they have to move to get to
Hmm.
POIs.
Oh, so
And
you're using the buses as lane blockers in this.
they could be lane blockers. I mean, really, they don't have a gun or anything on them. They're just there to contest objectives and get in the way. And I put uplink on the or spotter uplink on them just to, give out sharpshooter if nobody is base to base with them. So they're one of those things where if my opponent wants to get rid of this big cumbersome thing that's in their way, they're not diminishing my firepower at all, and I still have a lot of guns backing up the list to kind of get up on the attrition battle if they're spending
Hmm.
their time killing the buses. If they don't kill the buses, they can be a nuisance, just objectively
Right.
speaking.
And the other
Pun in.
thing too is the buses can go fast enough they can threaten the safe point by
Mm-hmm.
tying up if they only left a single unit, and if they did, maybe they have to pull back a second unit, which then isn't going to be on the center objective. So
Yeah,
there's a
that's a
lot of
great point.
options there.
So yeah,
Okay.
I like this list into a lot of objectives, but I think close the pocket might be one of the ones I feel really good about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I like it.
And so that's me, Richard. What have you made for us?
Well, if you have been listening to me at all lately, I've just been in love with this list. This is the newest version of my Live, Lat, Love list. It's Clone Commander Cody with mission objective, a Clone Commander with improvised orders, a Clone Trooper Infantry with Z6, a Clone Trooper Infantry with a shotgun, a Clone Trooper Infantry with fives and a shotgun, 2 ARC Troopers with Jedi Guardian, an ARC Trooper with Ahsoka Tano, 2 ATRTs with the laser cannon, in the Lat Patrol with the Clone Trooper Shock Pilot, Bunker Buster Shells, Armor Piercing Shells, and Link Targeting Ray. The points update kind of changed a few things. I had to drop out one of the Z6 troopers, move some upgrades around, but I'm fairly happy with this still. So we talked about having kind of those long range poke pieces. Those are my ATRTs. We talked about those I kind of want to dump everything on the same side as you and fight. Those are my Jedi Guardian and Ahsoka arcs. That's my shotguns. That's my 5 shotgun. Honestly, it's my lat as well, which is just throwing a bucket of dice, even more dice these days with oh, I took it off. Never mind. Door Gunners isn't on there. That's why I can't find the objective or the upgrade. So this is just a bucket of dice. If you get to the center, the shotguns work in melee, so you're happy if fives and the shotgun are in melee. Arc troopers want to be in melee, so they're happy. And this is kind of just that scrum fighting objective going on here. Um,
Yeah,
I
this
really
feels to
like it.
me like I know you played Wookiees for a long time, but this feels like
Yep.
quintessential Richard. Like this is I don't know.
Thank
I don't
you.
know exactly what I'm trying to say besides quintessential Richard, but it just screams Richard Lavery to me.
It's the in your face. It's the aggressive. It's the I'm trying to take as many of your models off as quickly as possible,
Yep.
and then we'll figure out what the game state is after that. Which, to be fair, is my favorite playstyle.
Yeah. I know that about you.
Well, we've been playing together for how many years now? If you didn't,
Oh,
I'd be
it's a great point.
okay. Those are our lists for these 2 objectives, which means I believe it's time to move on to intercept signals.
Intercept the signals. As a reminder, general overview, we've got POIs. They're kind of in a wide diamond shape with the top and bottom POIs in friendly / enemy territory. And the side ones, again, along the equator, about halfway. I think it's exactly halfway between the edge and the middle of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And you score points for each POI you secure and or each POI contested by a friendly unit with an intel token, which is decided at setup. So,
Mm-hmm.
general strategies here. I think the easiest thing in my mind would be you have two objective holders or intel token holders, split them up, one go each direction, and
Mhm.
that's kind of your, as long as they're alive, you're scoring 2 points.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've seen most players do. There is a case where you'll see the two go on the same side, and that's kind of the weak side. So normally when you're playing this objective, right, at the competitive level, there's a strong side and a weak side. The strong side is where you're going to have the majority of your army, and even if your opponent is able to get their objective holder there, you're going to secure that objective and still score your point because you have more units around the point. You're going to then send your objective holders to the weak side POIs because even if they go down, you can get your um, asset token. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
From
that's.
securing the other side, your strong side POI. And then if
Mm,
you bounce it back there, you can then either threaten that weak side again or threaten the opponent's point. And
okay.
so e- either strategy works. You kind of have to adapt a little bit to what your opponent's doing. At the end of the day, what I believe to be the best method is to have really durable token holders and just sit one on each and provide pretty decent support to each one of them and go kind of a 50-50 split. But oftentimes when I'm playing this at a tournament, opponents are going kind of a 75-25 split. But that usually results in being able to clear off one of those sides pretty quickly and force an opponent into a situation where they kind of have to overextend a unit in order to keep the scoring parity.
Hmm. I will say, now that you bring it up, historically, when I play this, I do tend to split them, but the problem arises being mostly a rebel player and a white save army. If one of those units goes down, then the objective that I am most likely securing is my home point. And
Mhm.
if I have people camped out there, I don't want necessarily them to have an asset token because they're cozy in their home like friendly territory POI. And so they're people that I don't expect to move, and then they end up getting an asset token. And now, like if it's a rebel veteran, for example, um, they can't move fast enough to go contest a POI. So
Right.
that has gotten me in trouble before. I think you raise an interesting point there about putting them both on a weak side, overloading the other to make sure that if you drop one of those units, the other POI you're securing is the one we're fighting over, so that you have objective or asset tokens on both, which I think is valuable insight.
Thank you. The other thing is there is a strong case for fast speed 3 units to get the objectives. I'm thinking your Mandalorians are my preferred target for this. It's possible to do it speeder bikes. Vehicles like the bus that are able to go pretty long distances with 2 speed 1 moves would be another great target where you kind of do that same split of you do the 75-25 where you secure the 75, you can test with the asset on the 25, and you throw that speed 3 target into the opponents to
Hmm.
score 3.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, this is an objective that scores in parity. Both players will score 2 points every turn. It's pretty challenging to go up on primary objective points, and so a lot of the times this one is decided by secondary objectives. So if you're able to surprise an opponent with a reach out and score 3 to their 2, we're back in that same situation we were just talking about where you put a little bit of extra pressure on them.
Hmm.
Now, 9 times out of 10, in order to do so, you're going to be overextending a unit. It's got to survive the clapback or go late enough in the turn in order to score that 1 point and then figure out what's going on next turn. So there's some cheeky shenanigans play if you really want to play this one. I do think last episode we talked a lot about the maneuverability objectives, and I tend to think of the pools of objectives kind of being in 2 buckets: speed and maneuverability, and just straight up fisticuffs brawling. So your movement objectives are your intercept signals, your shifting priorities, your recover the research, whereas your fisticuffs objectives are your bunker assault, close the pocket, and breakthrough. So, you know, take that however you will, maybe with a grain of
So
salt.
so I know you just listed this one under movement objectives, but at the same time I could see like melee units excelling at this one. If they can get to that POI, they're going to camp out. And
Absolutely.
so like there's a flavor of fisticuffs to this one as well as the movement aspect.
And to be fair, there are fisticuffs in all Legion objectives right
Yeah,
now
valid.
because we only have 6. We know where the fighting has to take place in order to score on the primary objectives, and you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of position to be able to do that. I do think any list can play any objective. I think they excel at some more so than others.
Okay.
But you're right. Your opponent has to go to these 2 points in the board. They don't really have any other choices if they want to score primary objective points. And so, once again, we're in a situation where those range 2 larger dice pools or melee dice pools can really excel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're really good. Any beefy red save unit that you can put a token on, or an asset token, let's be specific here,
Mm-hmm.
in order to survive. I'm thinking of like your Black Suns, your clones, any force user that can dig in and just be a real nuisance to remove.
Yeah.
Mandalorians, great example.
Yeah. And I know I talk about Jin all the time, but I think this is one of those objectives where she can be good. I have, I know there's video evidence of this on our YouTube channel, but I have sent her just up the middle with an asset token to go contest an enemy
Up the
point
middle?
up the middle because generally, like we're talking, your armies
Hmm.
end up splitting and there is a lane up the middle sometimes with how mobile she is, potentially moving 3 times in a turn. She can just kind of scoot up the middle and be relatively safe, I should say. Granted, in that video,
Mhm.
I put her in a bad spot and she got blasted by some pikes and died immediately. But
So I think this is a great point that we can talk about kind of our last bullet here. The deployment for this objective, I would strongly recommend you deploy your army not parallel with those objectives, but dead
right.
center that can split in either direction.
Hmm.
And so in I think going up the dead center with a squishier unit might be a bit of a death sentence.
In
Um,
this case, it was, but only, I mean, granted, I was playing Chris and he had his army very split. Um,
mm,
and so, like, there was a wide open spot. I put her ever so slightly in the wrong spot. And I did not expect Pikes to be able to get 2 shots into her. And so she died on the second shot.
okay,
If I
gotcha.
had put her where I should have, she only would have had 1 shot into her and she would have been fine. And then the next turn, she would have been free to go contest the back POI.
Hmm.
And then on a similar note, I just want to mention prepared positions units with dug in. This is one of those objectives where a POI is in your friendly territory. So if you want to put 1 or 2 units with prepared positions and dug in, they do not have to move. And if your opponent tries to come at your POI, they're just sitting there and they're really hard to get rid of with dug in. Um, I think there's some play there. I don't think it's like a you should do this for intercept signals. I think it's a there's a POI in your friendly territory, so this might be an option kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, and I know you and I were kind of going back and forth on this in the precast, and I'm not fully sold on this, but I can see, the prepared position units typically are at least 3, usually some way to get range 4. So if they're kind of sitting in the middle on your friendly territory POI, they can participate in the downfield firepower on both objectives, depending on what's required.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. I would rather, going back to what we were talking about with this being a bit more of a movement objective, with prepared positions units being typically speed 1, I'm not sold on them being useful here, but I mean, I've been saying this a lot recently. I think everything's worth trying right now.
Yeah.
Um, Whether or not it succeeds, that's fine. There should be a lesson that you take away from every game. I usually try to tell new players and even our veteran players within our Crit to Block group here is you should walk away from each game with 3 lessons that you learned. Even win, lose, whatever the outcome is, there's always 3 lessons that you should be able to learn. The lessons might be really simple. The lessons might be a little bit more complex. But if you can learn 3 things from every single game and you play 1 game a week, within a month, you've got 12 lessons that are going to make you a better player.
Unless you failed to listen to yourself when you learned those lessons and you learned the same lesson again multiple times.
Well, then
I obviously have never done that and am not at all guilty of that. But, other people might be.
Okay. Well, we've talked about the strategies, the units that are good. Let's go ahead and take a look at some lists.
Absolutely. I can go first again. Let me get the right tab here. I am going to switch things up and go Shadow Collective this time because I am technically a Shadow Collective player also. So I have made this here list for Intercept Signals. For those listening at home, instead of watching our faces, we have 2 capos, one with improvised orders, one with lead by example. We have Maul with Force Choke, Force Push, another improvised orders, Tenacity, and the Darksaber. We have 2 Pike Foot Soldiers with the Disruptor Gun and the Extra Man, 2 Pike Syndicate Foot Soldiers with the Whip and the Extra Man. And then we have 3 Swoops. All of them have Strike and Fade. 2 of them have Spotter Uplink. And then again, we have 2 buses. There's a theme here. One has the Frenzied Gunner, Door Gunners, and the Heavy Laser Retrofit, so the cheap little rainbow. And then the other one has Raiding Party Leader and the Backworld Medic. So I think one thing we didn't talk about for strategies or units that excel, again, Force Push can be really impactful here. If your opponent puts an asset token on a trooper unit that can be pushed, Force user can just stroll up and push them off of it if they've already activated, and then they're missing out on that point for the turn, which can be obviously very good. So we kind of mixed a little bit of melee and a little bit of long range here with the 2 different sets of pikes. And then swoops, like we talked about, can go just harass that home point or your opponent's home point, or just they're mobile. They can be where they need to be depending on the board state.
I like it. I think this is a solid list. You've got that back POI threat with the swoop bikes and the trucks. Mm-hmm. You've got lots of pressure you're able to dish out in order to maybe even panic an asset token holder. You've got the force push. You've got the close range. You've got the long range. Yeah, I like this list.
I forgot about the suppression aspect too, with the Raiding Party Leader and 3 swoops. The whip, I believe, is suppressive. So, yeah, look at that. You're helping me build strategies for the list I made, Richard. Thank you.
So much strategy. No, I think this is solid. I think that's a good one to play.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't showed it to Travis yet. I don't think he's our other resident Shadow Collective player, but I don't know. Do we really value his opinion?
Well,
just kidding. I'll cut that. Rude.
I think. Now, going over to my other list, speaking of Travis, stole this list from Travis. So he might be mad at me for revealing some of his secret tech, but oh well. So he calls this Dooku Shadow Collective. So it's Count Dooku with Burst of Speed, Force Choke, Force Push, and Underworld Connections. General Grievous with Improvised Orders and Into the Fray. 2 B1s with the Med Droid. A B1 with nothing on it. 2 Black Suns with the Shotgun and the Vigo. A 3rd Black Sun with Shotgun, Vigo, and Impact Grenades. And 2 Aqua Droids with the Heavy Aqua Droid and Spotter Uplink. So we were kind of talking before about a list that splits its army 50-50. This is that list. You have an Aqua Droid from line of sight blocking on each side. You got a Black Sun for each side. You've got a lightsaber wielder for each side. And then a Medroid B1 for each side.
Yeah.
That leaves you a Black Sun and a B1 to kind of flex into whatever role, whatever possession you kind of need them to be in. It gives you. An this is not a list that kind of wants to go for that pack point, but one that wants to bully an opponent off of the intercept point with an absolute truckload of dice, backed up by Pierce, backed up by aim rerolls. Black Suns are really hard to remove. Dooku and Grievous are both really hard to remove if they're your token holders. Aqua Droids have a ton of health and armor. There's a lot of good things here that can be kind of woven into the objectives to be able to help you out.
Yeah, I do appreciate this list. I also appreciate Travis's undying commitment to the Black Suns, just in general.
Endless. The only thing I'm surprised is this list doesn't have swoop bikes, and I think that's only because Separatists can't take swoop bikes.
They cannot.
That's the only reason.
That's why he's been playing Shadow Collective lately, is because swoops. Swoops are hot, according to Travis. I don't want to bandy that about as official crit to block statement, but Travis
people
does
love
believe.
swoop bikes. I'm lukewarm on them, but I'm lukewarm on all speeder bikes, so I might just be a hater.
I think you're a hater.
Yeah,
but that's okay. You know, there's room for everyone in our crit to block family, and
someone has to be the villain, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Beautiful. So that's our list ideas. Like we've said before, they're just kind of skeletons. They're starting points, and you know, feel free to take them, tailor them to whatever your playstyle is. But that's just kind of the vibe we're going for when we are talking about building lists that excel at particular objectives.
Mm-hmm. In summary, for these two objectives, things to keep in mind is being aware of your deployment and having a plan for where you want your models to end and your units to end up on turn 2. Understand if you want to score early or score late. At the very least, keep scoring parity, and maybe favor some of those closer range fighting models for these objectives, as opposed to kind of the long range faster models that we talked about last episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's my main takeaway here is, like you said, both of these objectives, you know exactly where the fight is going to happen. And
Yes.
it's a small area, and you're going to just, like you said, fisticuffs. This is Legion fisticuffs here as these two objectives. And so you got to be prepared. If you want to play these, you got to be prepared to go just maul some people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So with that, I guess we can move to our last segment. This might be our shortest episode ever. We are finally hitting that original 30 to 40 minute window. And so stuff we're into. Richard, would you like to start us off? Anything you're into these past couple weeks?
Yeah, so past couple weeks have been extremely busy for me. I went to a Middle Earth tournament this past weekend, my secondary miniatures game. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And then I got a 3D printer in on Monday, and so I immediately started printing terrain. So
that's amazing.
I crash course learned.
What do we have, like 3 people now in our group with 3D printers? The Crit to Block group specifically?
Chris, me, Joe, because Travis's is broken, so yeah. 3.
Doesn't Tyler have one?
I think Tyler sold his.
Did he sell it?
Probably might have sold his to Chris. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So we do, again, have...
Neither here nor there.
Yeah. We've got 3D printing capabilities. I know Chris printed off some... which ones did he print? He printed off some Fleet Troopers for me. Very excited to get those. Oh, I'm getting somebody else to paint them because I don't have time for the hobby aspect of Legion anymore, but I'm excited to get them on the table.
Shout out to Jim and his new.
Shout out to Jim. Absolutely.
He's painting some terrain for me too.
Beautiful. I'm excited to see that. What kind of terrain is it?
It's the Middle Earth terrain. So.
Oh, nice.
Stuff right. I don't think you care about, but I'll send you pictures.
Yeah, you heard it here first, guys. Richard plays Legion, and other things he's into includes miniatures games. He's a very diverse soul.
Books. I don't know.
Also books. Yes, I'm just giving you a hard time. Speaking of which, the thing I'm into is Warbreaker. It's a book. This is so I think we've talked about it. I'm a pretty big Brandon Sanderson fan, particularly Stormlight. I've read Mistborn also. But in talking to Travis last time, man, we've mentioned Travis a lot this episode.
It's like he's here with us.
Almost. But last time I came out for Legion, he mentioned Warbreaker as a recommendation. So I'm getting back into Brandon Sanderson. I haven't read anything of his in a while since Wind and Truth came out. And so it feels really good to be back in the Brando Sando world. I've been reading some other things, and it's just not hitting that same itch for me. But it feels good to be
Brando Sando, huh?
Yeah, that's what all the cool kids call him, maybe, possibly.
That's what they're calling it. Okay.
Maybe.
Roger that.
I don't know. I've never been a cool kid, but that's what I'm calling him.
Oh, you're cool in my book.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you're pretty all right as well.
There we go.
All right. Well, with that, we did it. We're into stuff. We're into Legion. I think we can call it a wrap in record time.
Yeah. Check in next episode for our final two objectives of the primary.
That's a great call out. Also, feel free to reach out to us on Discord, YouTube, wherever you find us. Happy to chat about Legion or other things. I have not had anyone reach out about things we're into yet, which is my ultimate goal. But someday.
The flip side is I appreciate everyone reaching out and letting us know what they think. Keep doing it. It helps.
Absolutely. All right, so with that, don't forget to crit to block.